Hello and welcome to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. Every month we sit down with Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller and ask your questions. Mr. Mayor, Macon has seen some great coverage in the press over this past year with travel writers and such, but the New York Times picked up the story of the 4 escapees from the jail, and we've seen the pictures of the hole there. I know that the sheriff and the county have spent millions recently in securing the jail, but they say, with a new jail possibly on the horizon, you can't really keep putting money into that and rather save. So what is the situation and what do you think hope happens going from here?
Well, I think obviously a lot of people have asked that question recently, and I've had people call me from CBS, CNN wanting to interview me, but it's really not something we need to discuss right now, particularly about the jail. We need to focus on capturing the inmates that escape. But I will say a couple of things. Number one, we're going to do a new jail. To be on the next splash so the voters can decide whether they want to have it or not, and what type of jail they want to have. So that's certainly on the horizon. You can only do these things because they're very expensive on renewals of SPLOST and things like that. The other thing is the age of that jail, in my personal opinion, based on what I know about it, has absolutely zero to do with the escape. You could build me a $100 million jail, give me a chisel and some electric tools and give me 2 or 3 hours and I can get out of that jail as well. So you've got to have the management, the capabilities there, the personnel, and the guidelines set up to stop something like that. So no matter how much you spend on a new jail, if you don't do the other things, you're going to have someone escape there. So I really don't put a whole lot of thought into the fact that it's a 43-year-old jail. It has nothing to do with this particular escape, even though I do recognize that we've heard it for the last 2 SPLOST that we need a new jail, but nobody has yet to put it on for a SPLOST vote for the people. So we're certainly going to do that. The people can decide up or down whether they want to have that. Certainly not the type of exposure you want to get, but things happen when you have inmates there that probably stay in there too long. Some of these people charged for murder have been there a couple of years. That's entirely too long to house somebody at a temporary facility. They should have their day in court, and whatever happens. If they're supposed to go to prison, then we should hope the state will pick them up as soon as possible.
You mentioned, and that's the price tag I've heard, is $100 million. Is that what y'all expect to have to pay to build a new secure facility?
Well, you never know until you start building it. It really depends on the size and what you want there. Our plan would be to move that location to a different place, to have some courtrooms there, so you don't have to do the transport there. I'm not sure how big a jail needs to be. I think we'll do some studies on that. Certainly don't want to overbuild a jail and try to fill it up. At the same time, the bad folks that really need to be in jail need to be in jail. So it's one of those things that we'll look at. We'll price it accordingly. We'll get enough land that we can expand if need to. But the goal is to have less people in jail because we have less crimes committed in our community.
In our last program, we were talking about consolidation and how the county lost a police force because now the sheriff is the constitutional officer over all of the law enforcement. So other consolidated communities like Athens and Columbus have a sheriff's office and a police force, and CCJ Director Debbie Blankenship wants to know, would you consider creating your own police force or at least a downtown security force?
Well, not only would I consider, I've already considered that, and I've had some things in the works for a while just in case it were to come up. Want to make sure we know what it takes to actually do that, what we can do financially for that. I've actually had a conversation with the sheriff about it on an occasion because we have to make sure that we do everything possible. I'm interested to see a lot of conversation. I know 3 or 4 people have announced for a sheriff this last few months. So we have a sheriff's election next year. We'll see what happens in that election there. Certainly we can put it before the voters for a referendum, and that may happen. But we have to make sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to get a situation where we're spending extra money and not getting better services. One thing we have done is we beefed up code enforcement to relieve some of the responsibilities that are medial tasks that the sheriff has, and we're still working out the kinks on that. Downtown has been a better presence for police. We've seen a lot of presence there. Cameras are helping wonderfully. And we've noticed a pretty good downtick in crime in that area. So we think with the cameras coming on board all across the community, it's going to make it a safer place. And as the sheriff continues to recruit more officers and they show up for the shifts and do what they're supposed to do, I think you'll see a better and safer community.
Have you also seen the rolling back of the closure of the bars have any impact on the crowds downtown that were lingering into the wee hours of the morning?
We certainly have. I mean, you can look at those cameras pretty often and go back and review those. You've seen less people late at night, which is a good thing. You haven't seen any illegal food trucks We're still going to work out something to make sure the food trucks are protected, and we're working on some things behind the scene there. But the bar closure is something they're going to get used to, something that's going to be beneficial for everyone, and it's going to keep us from rolling them back even further based on the steps they've taken. So I think it's something that's going to work out fine. It's just going to take a minute for everybody to get used to it.
And what are some of the new responsibilities under code enforcement or beefed up responsibilities in your administration?
Well, what we have them doing is going and checking the cameras for all these convenience stores, counting the number of the machines they have in there, the COAM machines, making sure that the cameras test positive, that they're pointing in the right direction, inspecting those before we give the alcohol licenses, handling some of the aggressive panhandling on the right-of-ways. We've been very good about doing that, helping us with these encampments that pop up to make sure that we use those as a kind of a co-responder to get them the help that they need to do. So they've been moving them along. Towing cars in alleys, inspecting trucks and things like that, and other types of security. So it's really been a valuable service outside all the wonderful things they're doing with blight. Now we've seen a great impact on that as well, and it prevents the sheriff from having to go over there a lot of times as well. So it does save personnel and man hours.
And recently you've kind of earmarked, again, funds for like violence interrupter programs and such. And I think during the meeting, Commissioner Virgil Watkins kind of wanted you to spend that money right away, but you have another plan in terms of looking at data. So what is that plan when it comes to reevaluating the Macon violence prevention programs?
Well, anytime you try to measure data, you got to actually you measure the data. So it's not the best advice to do that in the middle of a year. We need to get all the evidence based in from each of the programs at the end of the year, sit down with our criminal analysts and our Macon violence prevention and leadership team, and go over and see what's working and what's not working, and shift our focus accordingly. So we plan on doing that in January, making a decision by the time we do the funding, typically around April, and getting ready for our budget around May. So that's the timeline we have. We want to make sure we earmark those funds to make sure that the money didn't disappear. If the programs have really been successful, we want to fund them again at our levels.
And of course, also you've been putting money to youth programs, but during a recent commission meeting, June O'Neill, the Mentors Project director, mentioned that they now have to do group mentoring because they don't have enough for the one-on-one. So what do you hope will develop in this community, or do you have any plans to try to get more people involved?
Well, we try to get people involved all the time. That's one of the key issues that we have, is people getting engaged. We want to continue to encourage them to do so. You can't just throw money at that problem. School system has the same issue when it comes to parent engagement or whoever's at the household engaging with the student there. So it's something we're going to keep doing. Ask people to step up to the plate, do their civic responsibility to help these youth out, and it's going to really take everyone working together to solve this issue.
And I do know we have just a little bit of time in this block, but the Urban Development Authority is also partnering with the school system to have an agricultural and career technical education program. How is that going to work, you think?
Well, I think it's going to be very successful. A lot of people don't realize that agriculture is one of our top economic impact, in the state of Georgia. A lot of money comes through there, a lot of training, a lot of education, a lot of jobs that people don't realize that are there, and something we can capture there by working together. So just like we're doing at Brookdale and other places, we have the Georgia Farm Bureau here who's been really helping a lot with that as well, and the technical colleges. So I think it's going to be a game changer for that area.
Well, when we return, Macon is set to hit a high note when it comes to its new fixed base operation at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. Welcome back to Central Georgia Focus. Just this past Monday, Macon-Bibb County, the Industrial Authority, and Visit Macon were all out at the Middle Georgia Regional Airport to unveil the design for the new fixed-based operation. And I don't know if y'all got a chance to see it, but from the air, this thing looks like a guitar. It is really the coolest looking thing. Can you tell us a little bit about your plans and why that was so important to you to redo that fixed-base operation?
Well, certainly low aviation's been there quite a while. For 75 years, I think they've been out there. It's time for a change, an upgrade. It's something the county's been looking at for a while. Everyone talked the talk all these years, but nobody's really got down to putting things into work. So we wanted to make sure that we have a very, very bold and impressive FBO. It's going to be the top. As you might have watched yesterday, one of the speakers said this is the only one like it in the world. We're starting to do a lot of those things in our community. That's the only one like it. Very unique. We're taking some risk on our people. We think it's going to be successful. That airport is a untapped gold mine out there. We're starting to tap into that and see some great jobs out there as well. But more importantly, we can do some hangars. A lot of these planes may cost $14–15 million, and the ad valorem tax alone per year is $200,000 or $300,000. That's nothing to shake a stick at. It helps our whole community provide the services that we need. We want to provide more commercial air flights out there as well, but also maintenance and repair as well to bring good jobs out there. So we got a lot of things going on with the expansion. We're going to keep driving that force out there. Eventually, we're going to connect to the Savannah and the Brunswick areas and make sure those cargoes come to this area there. And I think before long we'll see some new destinations in the horizon, and also probably some new airline carriers as well.
I can imagine any big act flying into Macon, would come in on a private jet, and the private jet would be flying in, or any flight coming into Macon to see that guitar. So you see it kind of working hand in glove with the amphitheater?
Of course, it ties our whole our branding for Macon-Bibb County together. From our downtown nightlife to our amphitheater, just to our musical heritage with Capricorn Records, with the Big House, all kind of things going on there. So we want to make sure we do that. But it's also sometimes the first gateway, the first impression that a multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar company has of Macon-Bibb County. When you land at that airport there, what do you see? Right now, it's not the best thing that you see, not the best amenities you have. We want to make sure that we give them a good first impression, because sometimes that's all you get to do, and we want those companies to bring those good jobs to our community.
Looks like the amphitheater's on schedule to open next spring. Anything you can share about that?
Well, I think we're going to start, announcing some other acts very soon. As we mentioned last time, I think we'll start around March 20th, 24th, something like that. A lot of interest. All the VIPs and loges, I think, are sold out. So it's going to be very exciting times. Sometimes these national acts, they want to announce it on their time, so they may go ahead and schedule something, and we don't have any control over that. So I think probably next week you'll hear a couple more, and then before long you'll probably hear 20 or 30 of them, including some local acts and festivals. So we're excited about it. It's right around the corner, and things are going really well out there.
And the pickleball courts are almost turnkey ready. I did hear that somebody already has trademarked Pickle Mall. So
Yeah.
Any thoughts about what you might be calling that? What it should be called?
Well, we've done some studies and some names and some consultants, and we'll have a name on it very soon. We'll be announcing who's going to run that facility very soon. A very professional company that handles these all over the world on different types of venues. Our first event's going to be sometime around November 18th. So we're excited about that. We expect memberships perhaps to begin in December and be full wide open come January for walk-in visitors. Got at least 4 tournaments scheduled already, up to 3,000 or 4,000 people we expect. So things are going well. Economic impact is going to be huge there, leading right up to the time when we open up the amphitheater. So a lot of wonderful things continue to go. And we're moving all the offices in there. The Board of Elections is already open, and all the other offices will be open January 31st and April the 30th there. So we're very excited about the progress.
And what do you expect to happen, or what is already happening in the real estate market around the mall?
We're starting to see a boom already. You're going to see some new loft developments I expect in the near future there. You'll see some new restaurants that's already working on agreements there on what may come to that area. People are starting to fix up some old properties as well, and they're starting to sell some properties in the area. So recently, I'm not sure if you saw that the Butler Collision is a project that we're working out with the school system. It's going to be, it's out of the box, getting kids a job right there across from the mall to do training with our college and career academy. So we'll talk more about that in the upcoming future, but I know they took a vote and selected an architect the other day. So great partnerships we have in our school system, who had some good news recently on the graduation rate. Macon-Bibb County continues to soar.
And the program we were talking about last block, my understanding is going to be part of that building there on the Eisenhower corridor. Also during the Visit Macon meeting this month, CEO Gary Wheat was talking about the national park status and what all the community will have to do to prepare for that. They're looking at other places where national parks have gone in, and there's a lot of kind of infrastructure that needs to be built, hotels and things like that on the east side. Any movement on the East Bank development across from the Coliseum?
We've had some. We really want to get this national park designation first. We've got everything waiting. I say we have things shovel ready. We're ahead of the game, been working on this for quite a while, and the day we get the good news and the announcement, we're going to be ready to roll. So I'm not worried about that. It takes a community effort working all together, and all pieces of the puzzle have to be put together. And the final piece is going to be making sure that Congress does their job very soon.
Well, a Macon-Bibb County delegation recently traveled from Okmulgee to Okmulgee in Oklahoma, and one of the things that I learned on that trip was that the Muskogee Creek Nation, when they are dealing with visitors, they say this is only part of our story. Our story really begins in Macon. So do you see that, I know the synergy is continuing to enhance between the two communities, but do you see the possibility of a flight between Tulsa and Macon with your incentives that you want to open or offer to passenger service?
Well, I can certainly say there's going to be a great connection there. We do have a wonderful synergy there. There's going to be certain businesses that come here from Tulsa. They're interested in some things around the airport to make sure, you know, they have a casino there as well. You can fly people directly there on a charter flight now as opposed to going to other places. So I think I see a lot there. They do a good job of doing hotels as well. In the East Bank over there area could use some nice hotels, certainly around the mall as well. So I think that you'll see in the very near future, we'll have some announcements come that's going to make sure that they're part of that. They're going to be intricately involved in a lot of things we do, of course, under the co-management there of the national park. So economic development is just one small part of that. It's really about going back to the history and to the roots and honoring the things that they've done in the past.
Of course, last January, y'all raised the Muskogee Creek Nation flag over City Hall, and there are plans to do plaques and other things. Well, what can you tell us about the growing relationship between the nation and the county?
Well, I interviewed with someone recently and they asked me that same question. It's not just about economic development, even though that's a large part of it. It's really about having that, you know, reconciliation and getting to know the folks that was forced out of their area. So every day is a new building block in that relationship, and it continues to get stronger and stronger, and that's why I think time is right now for the national designation.
And speaking of building blocks and homeland, we're going to be talking about affordable housing, so stay with us. Thank you for staying with us for the Ask Mayor Miller edition of Central Georgia Focus. You know, Mayor, we've been talking about the growth potential that Macon has, a lot of exciting things going on, so we want more people to come and take advantage of it, but housing is such an issue right now. Even in the commission meeting, they were talking, Reggie Bell with Home First was saying that we have just such a shortage of houses that would be affordable. And we're talking $180,000 to $220,000. That seems still like a high price, but so what is going on with your Affordable Housing Board, and when will that money start being available for people to invest?
We expect that the quick answer is January. We hear a lot of talk about affordable housing, and what I'll tell you is when people are looking across the state of Georgia about affordable housing, they're looking at Macon. And the folks in Macon may not recognize that. I served on a task force there. I've actually presented at some of the Georgia Municipal Association on affordable housing with Christopher Nunn, with DCA. We're doing a lot of things right. One of the things we've done very early on is attack blight. That's an affordable housing issue because we have a lot of good housing stock that's not getting used in these neighborhoods, and we need to figure out a way to get those back on the market for people to have truly affordable housing. $180,000 to $220,000 would be a great price if you could get a house for that. It's really even difficult to get a price that at least expensive, unless you want to really get a small home. So that's why the affordable housing gives you to have cheap money. I say cheap money, 3 or 4% interest. The biggest problem you have is, number one, you got to have more inventory. You need to have lower interest rates. You got to have the workforce that can do the work in there. And then once you put all that together, you got to have an educated home buyer or new owner of a home that knows how to take care of a house. That's why Reggie Bell and his office there did a wonderful job at Home First to make sure that we have people waiting on these homes, but also make sure they understand what it costs to actually have a house. The other condition we have on these houses is to make sure they maintain their affordability for up to 20 years. We don't want people coming in and just flipping these houses and raising the prices. We need more inventory. We have a lot of wonderful people at Brookdale that are going to transition into housing. We've done a great job, but a lot of them could transition tomorrow if we had the inventory in stock. This is an issue that we have all across the state of Georgia because we continue to grow as a state, and the businesses still come here. So this is a challenge that we're going to have, but I think there's hope on the horizon, and we're looking forward to January to start lending some of that money, and we have a lot of good projects in mind.
And when the Center for Collaborative Journalism was looking into blight a few years back, one of the major problems is you might have a family, the parents die and then you have siblings and none of them may have the means to keep that house up, and then it just kind of falls into disrepair. But there will be loans for people to actually do the maintenance on their houses as well through this program, right?
Right, we have a variation. Number one, we could do a big project. If we had a bunch of units come on at one time, we can loan a substantial amount of money over a period of time. We can restore blighted houses. We can provide gap financing. Gap financing is one of those things that we find that if people only had the down payment, they could afford to pay the house, but nobody can save up the money for the down payment. Repairing those houses, we have programs already in mind for doing those, putting new roofs and air conditioning units, plumbing, things like that through our ECD. This is going to be low interest rates, going to be in locations where people can afford those houses, and we're going to have developers that will do a large scale there. So I'm looking to be able to knock that out of the park very soon, and I can't wait to get started on it.
There was some concern about property values in Linmore Estates because of the proposed solid waste transfer station. P&Z has just approved that. So I know you also had a moratorium against approval and construction of private solid waste transfer stations. So how was that moratorium going to affect this project? Do you think that it could halt it, or what are your plans? Because I know the county also has plans for a waste transfer station.
Right. Well, the moratorium. One thing, if you get into the law business without getting into the weeds, you can't post. You can't pass a ex post facto law, which means I can't change the law after you already started getting under this particular law. So it wasn't necessarily the intent to just do this moratorium and actually throw everything out the window. We want to make sure that we basically take a pause, take a deep breath, make sure we don't have any more of these pop up in the future. I do believe you haven't heard the last of that transfer station. My conversations with EPD basically I tend to believe that this particular project still has to go before the county under our solid waste plan. That thing started in 2015, way before anyone do a transfer station out there. So I think you'll probably see some more legal things going on, maneuvering, and at some point in time, I suspect the commission may actually hear this issue. But we'll wait and see and do whatever the law requires us to do.
And you had an RFP out for the county to have a solid waste transfer station at the old animal shelter property, kind of near where the landfill is. Is that still on track?
Certainly is on track, and we're working out the final details on that as soon. One thing that doesn't really make sense for any more transfer stations is under our franchise agreement that we have, Macon-Bibb County can dictate where all the trash goes in our community and who you have to use. If you want to franchise in Macon, that's going to have to run through a particular transfer station. So someone thinking they're going to run a lot of trash in our community through another transfer station that's going to open up is going to be in for a sad day when they know that they have to go through our Macon-Bibb County one. And that'll help us substantiate our solid waste plan as well.
When it comes to waste, at the last Keep Macon-Bibb Beautiful Commission meeting, there was a woman there with Macon 360 Zero Waste, trying to keep everything, even food waste, out of the landfill. But then the meeting before, we had a man from Ryland who told us that recycling, the single stream, is just not working out, and there's not a market for recycling anymore. So where do you see that effort?
Challenging. It's a very challenging effort. I think we may have a company coming in soon that can do a large part of that. We're in negotiation with them now, so I think they'll do a good job. Keep it local, be able to turn that for a profit, certainly be green. A lot of companies are giving up on their recycling programs, and it's very sad to have to do that. We're not considering that at all, but it is a challenge. It's something we have to monitor constantly. We spend a lot more money recycling than what the value of the recycling is, just in the financial standpoint, not necessarily good for the earth and good for our environment and good for our community. But it's going to be a challenge, from here on out. I don't see it getting any better. We also don't want people, sending all their trash here from other communities. We've had people looking from New Jersey and other places that want to put it on a train or send it to Macon-Bibb County, and we don't want that to pop up, and we don't want people dumping on our community. So we have to remain vigilant in that process, and that's the other reason for the moratorium.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and answer your questions. Remember, you're part of this program, so send questions to mercerccj@gmail.com, and we will get you some answers next month. Thanks for joining us.